Hello and welcome to this video on the BYROW and BYCOL functions in Excel. These functions are available in Excel 365 and Excel for the web. And their purpose is to apply a LAMBDA function to each row or column of a given array. Their syntax is simple. You just need to provide the array to process and then the LAMBDA function to perform on each row or each column of that array. Let's see some examples. Now, something I do each week is I volunteer at a local school and read with some of the children. And the teachers give me a bit of paper where I mark off which children I was able to read with on that given day. So in this worksheet, we have a similar matrix to the kind of thing I work with. We have different weeks along the top and then the names of the children down column D. And what we want to know ultimately is which children in this list have only had the opportunity to read less than 3 times, so that we can give them priority and hopefully being able to read next week. Now, as you can see, an X denotes that they have been read with. So to find out how many times each child has read, we could, starting from cell B3, just use a COUNTA function to count any non-blank cells, select the given range, so Carly here, and I can run that function and fill that down. And that will work absolutely fine. However, I'm creating 6 different formulas, 1 for each row. So it's difficult to perform further analysis on that because it's not just one formula, it's 6 different formulas. And one thing we cannot do is I cannot just use the COUNTA function to look across the entire range of all children, because that will simply return one aggregated result of how many X's there are in total. What we need this to do is to go by row, so for each child in each row, and count the number of X's or non-blank cells. So this is an opportunity for BYROW to come in and assist. So up in the formula bar, before my COUNTA function, which is already looking at the entire range or array, I'm going to use this BYROW function, and you can see it prompt me for the array to use and then the LAMBDA function. Now the array is going to be this E3 to J8 array, comma, and the LAMBDA function, I'll type LAMBDA and open that up. It will prompt for a parameter. Now when using BYROW and using a LAMBDA within BYROW, there is only one parameter to provide. And that's the name or the parameter that will act as each row. So I'm simply going to call this row. You can call it anything you want, but row is quite natural as it makes sense. I'll put in a comma so it prompts for the calculation, and I've already got the COUNTA there. I just need to change the range to the word row, the name of the parameter, and you can actually see it coming up in the list below with that little X beside its name. It's now time to close it all off. So I'll close off the LAMBDA and close off BYROW, and pressing enter will give us a spill range with each of those results. So these are the same results as we achieved with 6 separate COUNTA functions, but now it's only one formula. And because it's only one formula, I'm going to come up to the formula bar and let's add a filter function in there and ask it to filter the names of the children, comma, if the result of that BYROW function is less than 3. I'll close that off, and running our formula now returns the 2 names that we aim to prioritize a reading opportunity for. So the real magic here, that we were able to perform an aggregation function such as COUNTA on each row of a multi-row range. That is all returned as one formula, one spill range, so we could continue with further analysis. So that's one example of BYROW being used But let's have a look at the BYCOL function. Okay, so this time we can see that we have some names coming down columns and questions coming across a row. We can also see that there is a column with the correct answer, column G. So we want to be able to compare the answer given by each individual against the result in column G. Now, looking at row 10 at the moment and starting with Alejandra, I could do this with a simple logical expression. I could say equals, select all of Alejandra's results, or her answers, I should say, and ask if they're equal to the results in the answer column, which I will then make absolute. And if I press enter there, this is going to return the logical value of true or false as to whether that is the correct answer or not. So D is correct, A is correct, B is false, that is not correct, and so on. Now ultimately we want to know how many answers are correct here. So I simply want to count or ultimately sum the results we've seen on screen. But I can't sum the word true and false. So coming back to that formula, I'm going to add in the N function. There are many approaches for this, many techniques to convert trues and falses to ones and zeros. One of them is the N function provided within Excel, and now I have ones and zeros, which we could return to, and now simply throw in a sum function to sum the ones, telling us that there are 4 correct answers provided by Alejandra, and I can fill that across to Simon, Tatiana and Vasim. And we can see that Tatiana has the most correct answers. Now that's great, but we haven't seen BYCOL yet, and hopefully you can see where this is going to come in, because once again I had to manually get involved there and drag that formula over. But also I've ended up with 4 separate formulas. So why would we use BYCOL? Well, first of all, it will be 1 formula versus 4, and surely 1 is better than 4. But also it will be just that 1 formula which we can then have the chance to work further with. So coming back to the first formula, let's go for the formula bar for this change. It's BYCOL this time. The range is this range of answers given by the individuals, comma, and the lambda function. We come up with a name for the parameter, such as col, and then within the function, we replace the range we're working with the word col. So right now, that is going to be this C3 to currently C8. Col, is that equal to it? I need some brackets on the end, 1 for lambda, 1 for BYCOL, and pressing enter will produce a spill telling me to remove these answers from my fill of the formula earlier. And now we've got the same results, but 1 formula thanks to BYCOL. Now what we want to be able to do is we want a list of each individual. We want their names in a column and how many answers they got correct. And we want it sorted by the total correct answers. So Tatiana should be first in that list, followed by Alejandra, followed by Vasim, and then Simon in this current data and current status of it. So with the function we've got so far, I'm going to take a copy of the formula text because I don't want the ranges to change as I paste them elsewhere on the sheet. I'll press escape to abort the formula, and I'm coming over to cell I3 where we're now going to add to that formula, first of all with a VSTACK function. So this is your vertical stacking function, and what I want to do is join together the names of the people with their answers. At the moment they're separated by the questions and the results of those questions. So VSTACK, and I'm going to select the names of the individuals, comma, and I'm going to paste in that BYCOL function, close off my VSTACK and remove the equals before BYCOL that I shouldn't really have copied. Let me just briefly tidy up this formula by breaking the 2 parts of VSTACK onto their own lines. making it slightly easier to digest. And if I press enter on this at the moment, we're going to get this spill array of the name and then their result. If I resize the formula bar, we're now going to add to this by transposing it. So I'll put in a transpose function. So that will convert our vertical list into a horizontal. And then finally, I want to sort it by the second column of that array, which is the score column. So coming back up, sort function, and then on the end, I'm going to say I want to sort it by column 2, comma, and -1 for descending. Let's close off that bracket, and we have our result. I can now remove what was in row 10, as I do not really need that. That was just being shown for the purposes of learning and building up to our ultimate result. And in here, we have it. We have our formula, which relied on BYCOL to allow us to perform that sum aggregation on each column of a given array, and then return that as one spill range for us to continue working with, along with VSTACK, transpose, and finally a sort function. So they are the BYROW and BYCOL functions of Excel. I think they're awesome. I hope you do too, and there may be some uses that you're thinking of how you can include them in your spreadsheets. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so that you will be notified of the latest video releases. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.